Guys, this is Lachelle from Scarlet Moon Creations, and this is my mid-November reading wrap-up, where I talk about the books, the first half of the books I read in the month of November. But let's jump right in to the books I read the first half of the month. I'm not officially participating in any readathons, though at the time of filming this there is currently Tome Topple, which kind of happens to be around the same time as I'm reading some tomes, so we'll see what happens. There will be at least one outfit change in this, meaning I've filmed another part of this video at a different day. But I wanted to get these books out of the way first. So the first book I want to talk about that I finished in the month of November was Kitty Takes a Holiday, book number 3 in the Kitty Norville series. I'm rereading this series in hopes of finishing it. It does not look like that will happen this year, but you never know. But I doubt it. I'm up to book 3, and there are 15, I think. So, but I was reading this series, a part of this series overload of series group on Goodreads. So, in this book, we are following Kitty Norville. Some things happened in the previous book, and I'm not gonna say what those are, but they were pretty traumatic in a different way than what happened in the first book. So yeah, Kitty is taking a break, basically away from civilization, up in, I think, Washington State, in a rural town, or not even really in the town. She's staying in a cabin outside of the town. She only ventures in to get supplies from a local store and occasionally to meet up with her lawyer, Ben. So, basically, while she's there, some things start happening. Not to her directly, but it seems like in indirect ways, the members of the town don't want her there, and they are showing it in their most bigoted, prejudiced way possible. And she contacts Ben and Cormac, who has helped her before, and they show up with a problem of their own. Something happened on one of Cormac's hunts, and Ben winds up injured, and things just evolve from there. This is an urban fantasy series. I like them. This one, there's always a little element of romance in them, but it's that's not the point or the purpose. But this one definitely has a stronger element. There have been some hints with Cormac, but that's not the way things go in here. So situations change for all 3 of their lives in various ways, and it was interesting. I definitely want to read the next book in that series. So after that, I read another of the Sherlock Holmes stories from the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. I have, as I've said, the complete collection of Sherlock Holmes stories, and I'm slowly making my way through it. The memoirs are not my favorite. They're very short. A lot of them are retellings of a sort, not the way that current booktube is thinking of retellings, but it's third person for the most part. Watson is not there. He's hearing this story as retold to him through Sherlock, from his memories. This one is a little bit different, however. And it's still not as satisfying because the Greek interpreter is this short story, and basically Sherlock gets called on to by a Greek interpreter, a man who interprets for whoever shows up at his doorstep, apparently. I knew that was not going to be a good thing as soon as he said that. And basically, he gets kidnapped to interpret for unwillingly for someone who has also been kidnapped and held hostage unwillingly, but only speaks Greek. And he comes to Sherlock to help him find this person again, and it doesn't really 100% work out, but yeah, this one is not solved exactly by Sherlock, so I'm not really happy with it. It's like, okay, this is a thing that happened. It was odd, and is what makes it memorable. But moving on, the next book I finished in the month of November was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I knew I wanted to reread this series because I'd never finished I never caught up in it. I only read the first two books, this and A Court of Mist and Fury, which I own. I don't own this one. This is a library book. And, lo and behold, Court of Mist, Thorns and Roses Read Along, Court of Thorns and Roses Read Along is being run by several newer and new-ish YouTubers. I only know one, and that's Deja's World. I believe it's her channel name. Anyway, so they're hosting Reread Along because the next book, A Court of Silver Flame, I think it's called, is coming out in February of next year. So I was like, let me join in. So I reread this. I believe I gave it 4 stars when I read this. Obviously, I wasn't doing BookTube at the time when I read this. I don't even think I was watching BookTube then. So, what is this about? We have Feyre, who is a human living basically on the edge of the world. Her family has fallen into poverty, basically, and she's the only one able, for whatever reasons, to bring and put food on the table by hunting in the woods. Humans in general are not doing so well because most of the world has been taken over by the Fae, and the only reason humans have not been erased off the face of the earth in totality is because I think 500 years ago a pact was made after a long drawn out war between the two races where humans were almost made extinct. But anyway, so part of the pact is that human beings cannot kill Fae, with one of the few ways that they can, which is with ash, and they have to stay out of the Fae worlds on the other side of the wall. One day, Fae is out hunting and she kills a Fae. That Fae's ruler comes to find her and sees that she's in poverty, so instead of killing her, he takes her hostage back to the Spring Court, leaving her family without a breadwinner, basically, without someone to put food on the table to keep them alive. And Feyre is kept hostage in the Spring Court, and things develop from there. Rereading this, at the time, I did not leave a Goodreads review, so I can't even say anything. I know I had 4 stars. I'm going to bump that down to 3.5, mostly because I have grown as a reader. I'm more cognizant of what I like and what I don't like. I like this just as much as I did last time, but I think I just a little bit over gave it more points, whatever, stars than it deserved. I'm more aware this time around of the similarities, what Sarah J. Maas, as a fan of Anne Bishop, took from the Black Jewels trilogy, the Black Jewels series, which I am a huge fan of. I've talked about this in my favorite series of all time video, and I do believe my favorite high fantasy series. The Black Jewels is up there at the top. I don't remember what, it's like top 3 of all time. So it's not plagiarism, it's a style of referring to things, and I don't remember how aware of it I was at that time, but I've since heard other people mention the similarities between the two, and I see it here. This is no Black Jewels trilogy, but it's still good. The last like 100 pages of this is what really does it for me, and what more in tone. I realize I like a darker magical world, I guess you can say, where the stakes are really high, where we're talking about brutality from our bad guys. And the stuff while she was in the spring court was very much not my thing. I'm also more aware, maybe not. I think I'm just as much aware, because this is considered a retelling of Beauty and the Beast fantasy. So that part is fairly obvious, but yeah, I feel pretty much the same. I like the spring court stuff, but if that was what we were dealing with only, I would definitely bump this down to like a 2.5 or 3 stars. I liked it, but it was nothing special. But the end really like brought it up for me, and knowing where this goes to the next one. So yeah, this is I give this 3.5 stars. Book number 1 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. And yeah, I got this out from the library. It's a YA fantasy. Next, I want to talk about my first arc, the first arc I've ever read. My arc is an advanced reader copy. If you weren't aware, I requested this through Goodreads, though I didn't realize it was going to be an arc at the time. They were offering a giveaway. I put in for it, and then it arrived from the publisher, St. Martin's Press. And this is book 1 in Nora Roberts' new series. I think it's probably going to be a trilogy, because that's what she does, but and nowhere on here does it say trilogy. This is book 1 in the Dragonheart's Legacy, The Awakening. And yeah, advanced reader copy. So in this book, we're following Breen Kelly, who is a girl who has been pushed down in life mostly by her mother to think less of herself. She's in a job as a teacher that she doesn't really want. She has, student loans. It's a very modern book. She's living a great life. She thinks that she's not smart, that she's nothing special, that she has no talent in anything in particular, and yada yada yada. Breen is living in Philadelphia, I think it is. Yes, she's living in Philadelphia. Her father is missing. She hasn't seen him since she was a young girl. And one day she finds out, surprise, surprise, her mom has been keeping information about her father from her, particularly the fact that he's been sending her money once a month for years. So here's Breen working 2 jobs, one in addition to her teaching job, to make ends meet, just to feed herself and to pay her rent, and occasionally have a drink out with her roommate. And she's got several $1 million in a bank account. So she finds out and then decides, I'm changing my life. I'm doing what I want. She does not go overboard. Breen is an intelligent girl, and but her big splurge is she decides to go to Ireland, where her father is from, in hopes of finding him. She takes her friend, who is gay and works at a bar that is run by a crossdresser, a gay crossdresser. Yes, a, or would that be impersonator? Because I think every mention of Sally is as a specific celebrity. I'll have to go back and recheck that. But that being said, um, yeah, Sally has been a better mother figure than Breen's own mother. Breen goes to Ireland and she finds a whole lot more than she expected, and things go from there. So, through the majority of this, I mean, honestly, the majority, was expecting and was getting what I was expecting. I'm a fan of Nora Roberts, obviously. I put in for the request to get this book, but she has a lot of these like magical trilogies, a lot of them where the person or people are tied to Ireland, because that's Nora Roberts' heritage herself. They're very atmospheric. The magic and the spirituality is very witchcraft, earth based, and some like folklorish, fairy stuff, depending on whatever. There's always like a big bad, and in each part of the trilogy, there are couples that come together. There's always like 6 main characters that need to work together in some way, shape, or form, and they're related to each other in some way, shape, or form, and they couple up in each book. And if you've read these series, you can pick them out almost instantly, very early on. Like, okay, this one, there's 3 brothers, and then there's a new girl in town who's, down on her luck and, trying to get away from whatever she was in before. And there's another girl who's lived in town the whole time. Like, and then there's like some fancy business owner who comes, like that kind of thing. The characters are very similar to each other, and Breen definitely fit the kind of down on her luck girl who doesn't really know who she is kind of character that I've seen before, so I assumed that's how this was going. It did not go that way. I'm not sure if we're gonna have the 3 couples, though it's possible. For the majority of this, I thought that the LGBT plus rep with the best friend roommate Marco and Sally and the bar and all of that was just modern window dressing, and I was like, why are they there if they're not important? But the end, like the last 100 or so pages really are like, oh, and then in the very, very, very end, it's like, okay, so Marco will have a bigger role in this than originally thought. The main couple in this don't even really get together until the last 100 pages, and they're not quite together, but they have sex. So yeah, this is more and different than I was expecting, and I really should have kept an open mind about that, because the last trilogy she did, the One trilogy, I think it was. I know the first book was Year One. I can't remember the rest of the titles, but that was completely different from what I'm used to from Nora Roberts. So she's branching out. And I like that. She is a good, solid, steady writer. I'm not saying that if this had followed the formula I'm used to, that it would have been bad. It would have been predictable, but I picked this because I am comfortable with those books. I've been reading a lot of heavy, high epic fantasy where I don't know, what the characters will do. There's a lot thrown at you as a new reader, and then I picked this to read this because I was expecting to be comfortable, and I was, but still surprising. So I give this a 3.5 stars. And yeah, this is urban fantasy, a portal fantasy. I'll let you decide how that works out. But yeah, that is a good book. Do try it out. Oh, I should tell you, since it's an arc, it comes out on November 24th, which is in roughly a week. So do check out The Awakening by Nora Roberts. Hello again. The last book I want to talk about that I finished is one I'm very happy with, and I can say that I officially participated in Tome Topple once again this year. Tome Topple Read Along is about reading tomes, which are books 500 plus pages, or more. Now, there will be other books that I'll talk about in my November reading wrap up with the latter half of Tome Topple, but the first tome that I completed during Tome Topple was book 2 of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, Words of Radiance. I read the ebook of this that I got out from the library. Now, this fits for Tome Topple because this book is 1,087 pages long, and that's a lot. Also, even though I didn't complete all 1,087 pages during Tome Topple, I had started this book at the last couple of days of October and finished roughly half of it in the beginning of November, and then the second half of it, which was 560 pages, during the first week of Tome Topple, the first 4 or 5 days of Tome Topple actually. So I'm feeling myself. Now, how to talk about this series, because book 2 really gave you a lot of content, a lot of action, so you now know kind of where this series is going, whereas in book 1 there was a lot of character building, exposition, I guess, and this summary for it wasn't really giving you an idea of what the Stormlight Archive series was. What's the point? Like, what are we getting towards? It was world building and character building, and I don't know what's happening because a lot of characters don't know what's happening. So, I won't go into too much detail about Words of Radiance, but just to give a summary for the series, for book 1 in particular, we are following multiple characters' perspective on the planet of Roshar, which also happens to be the name of the continent that we mostly focus on. And we're following, like I said, several characters. 3 main ones in particular, like their perspectives we see the most: Kaladin, Shallan, and Dalinar. Kaladin is a young man from a relatively poor background who had ambitions to join the war for his people, because that's what they do. They're a fighting, warring culture, and he deals with a lot of downfalls along the way, including huge bouts of depression. And we have Shallan, who comes from a much better background, a noble background from a different country and culture, who is running away from her past and at the same time trying to better it and herself by becoming the ward of another woman. And last we have Dalinar, who is the most privileged person of the three, who is basically like the one of the right hand men to the king. He is in the war camp trying to bring all of his people together. Like I said, they're warring people. And because he's getting these visions that make him seem crazy, but may or may not be truly prophetic. But anyway, Dalinar and the other high princes are all in the war camps because they're supposed to be trying to avenge Dalinar's brother, who was the previous king, who was killed by their enemies. And things have been going very slow with this war because the high princes were kind of forced to be together, to work together by the previous king. And also it's become the war more of a contest for these things called gem hearts, which get them a lot of money. So they have contests to get out onto the Shattered Plains, basically where the war is being held at, to get the gem hearts before the opposition, so that they will have the money and the power and the shard plates and whatnot. None of this makes sense unless you really read this series. And book 2, we see those characters and others that we've had perspectives from come together. And it's very interesting. Words of Radiance, like I said, there's more action. There's a lot more activity happening and action. We see a lot more war things happen, whereas in the previous one, we got a little taste here and there until the very end of Sanderlanche. But we are now like committed to liking or disliking the characters. We know a lot of their motivations. In book 1, we got flashbacks for Kaladin. Now book 2, we have flashbacks for Shallan. So you get to know more about her. A lot is revealed to the characters about the world, and therefore a lot is revealed to us, the readers, about the world. Because for the most part, a lot of them take how and they're living, their society, the people around them, their slaves, and just the way the world works, geologically, weather-wise, spiritually, energetically. They just take it for granted that that's how things have always been, and they don't really question certain things for various reasons. And now a lot is revealed, curtains are open, there's a lot of like, people are tested in various ways. I like Shallan a little bit more because now like she has more world experience and is more open. And you realize she's not as though I kind of knew like her backstory, the thing she was running away from, I called that in book 1. So, but that's not to like be smug or anything like that. It's just I figured. But I didn't get the overarching thing, so I'm excited to read Edge Dancer, the short story that comes after this, and then get to Oathbringer, which, yeah. Those will not be my next tomes to read during Tome Topple. I thought I would finish one other for this video, but I didn't get to finish it in time, so it is what it is. But that is the last book I'll be talking about. Those are the books that I read, the first half of the books I read in the month of November. Let me know if you have read any of these books. I should say that I gave Words of Radiance 5 stars, and I also read this as part of the Stormlight Archive read-along that is happening, linked down in the description, and I can't wait to talk about it. It was a big jump from the 3.5 stars I believe I gave with Kings, which may be pushing it, might only be 3. But yeah, so let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about here in this video. What did you think of them? Are you participating in Tome Topple or in the Stormlight Archive read-along? What do you think about my descriptions? Do they catch you? Is there something you want to try out now? I hope so. I like sharing book conversations, so let me know in the comments down below. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you are new, hit the notification bell so you know when my next video is coming up. Other than my wrap-ups, we're getting to the end of the year, so soon we'll be having some end of the year videos, my favorites, least favorites, disappointments, surprises, etc. And I may or may not do that best of 2020 because it was a fairly good reading year so far. So yeah, hit the subscribe button if any of that sounds interesting to you, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.